Hi everyone, I'm Ignacia Yuyun, a student of Dr. Bio Research Program who is participating as a sit-in student in ICT Cultivated TEFL course. Let me share the results of a journal critical review I did. This critical review presentation is a part of ICT Cultivated TEFL course assignments. In this presentation, I will first describe the introduction, revealing burning issues, objectives of the review, a brief description of the article, and important findings. Second, I will explain the general comments on abstract, research methodology, findings and discussions, and conclusion. Third, I will share the review result covering the analysis, comments, and arguments. The last one, I will summarize the article review and provide recommendation. Here is the journal information. The title of the article is an online engagement framework for higher education written by Redmond et al. This article was published in Online Learning Journal, which is dedicated to developing and disseminating new knowledge at the intersection of pedagogy, emerging technology, policy, and practice in an online environment. OLJ is indexed in the Web of Science and Scopus, and it is ranked among the top 3% of open access journals in the field of education. This article presents a short review of the literature regarding online engagement in higher education, moving beyond discipline-specific engagements. It is a conceptual framework that builds upon recurring themes within the literature, including students' beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors. The framework was developed by adopting a constant comparison to analyze the literature, search for, and identify current and emerging themes. The framework identifies indicators for 5 critical elements of online engagement and proposing the framework as a guide for researchers and academics when exploring online engagement from a conceptual, practical, and research basis. There are important findings including practice recommendations, outlining how the framework might be used to reflect critically upon the effectiveness of online courses and their ability to engage students. In this article, the abstract sections contains an introduction, research background, objectives, methods, results, and recommendations for practice. Abstract writing is also following accepted conventions. The article's authenticity is also shown through a short, concise, clear, and accurate title. Also, the article provides keywords that reflect the current of the article. Furthermore, the author's credibility can be accounted for, as seen from the institutions, and the article is also published in reputable and indexed in the Web of Science and Scopus. Regarding the research methodology, the article applied a grounded theory in a social constructionist approach, combined with deductive thematic analysis to create an evaluative framework to explore online learning-based practices linked to student engagement. Besides, the framework method proposed by Gale et al. Was also employed to categorize data and generate descriptions and explanations systematically. The findings and discussion in the article result in the construction of an online engagement framework for higher education. Remarkably, instructors, instructional designers, teaching teams, and program level, macro level, and researchers benefit from the proposed framework. In the article's conclusion, the framework that has been designed offers those who work in the online space a template to guide their work. As the number of students enrolling in online courses in higher education is on the rise, we must explore the nature and the quality of the engagement. This part presents the analysis, comments, and arguments on the article parts such as introduction, method, results, discussions, and conclusion. In the introductions, this article formulates the problem statement at the end of background elaboration. This article draws together themes and findings from relevant literature on online student engagement and proposes a conceptual framework to explore online student engagement in higher education. This research statement is specific to the problem and reflected in the design. This part plays an essential role in informing the reader of what will be studied and justifies the study's purpose. Authors are cognizant that others have produced conceptual frameworks about engagement. This article also shows how it fills the research gap as it is used a different method to systematically analyze the literature about the field by using the framework method of Gale, Heath, Cameron, Rashid, and Redwood. This article's literature review and theoretical and conceptual framework are well elaborated and clearly explained to define online engagement, student demographics and needs, and engagement in online higher education. These elaborations are linked to the subject using more than 50% updated peer-reviewed primary research. The theoretical and conceptual frameworks in the article provide a rationale and the development of research questions or statements. Besides, readers can quickly identify how the framework, research question, purpose, and literature review complement each other. Regarding methodology, the authors have clarified why they used a qualitative methodology, and this article has chosen a theoretical approach or framework. The research design's elaboration was well explained, starting with a grounded theory in a social constructionist approach. Then additional elaborations was provided regarding the use of deductive thematic analysis to create an evaluative framework to explore online learning-based practices linked to student engagement. Besides, the framework method was also employed to categorize data and generate descriptions and explanations systematically. This systematic approach and techniques were used to ensure the reliability and validity of the study. The literature was explored, and each researcher used a constant comparison method to collate current and emerging themes. Although often associated with grounded theory, constant comparison is a valuable method for theme identification from any text. Again, this member checking was critical in appraising qualitative research to ensure its rigor, credibility, and trustworthiness. The researchers individually and then collectively used a deductive approach as seen in Figure 1. This deductive process filters concepts, indicators, categories, and implications from the literature and identifies additional themes that were then superimposed over the existing ones. Then, the data collection techniques and analysis employed in the study were illustrated in a figure named Six-Stage Process for Framework Development, as seen in Figure 2. This part can be identified and appropriate for this article research statement. Since this study employed a grounded theory, details of participants' inclusion and exclusion criteria and recruitment sites where the sample was drawn from were not available. Regarding the findings, since the research article employed qualitative research, the authors reported findings in themes based on the data analyzed. The themes were identified and elaborated well in the proposed conceptual framework for online engagement. The study investigated 5 elements, including social engagement, cognitive engagement, behavioral engagement, collaborative engagement, and emotional engagement. Then, the findings were linked to and reflected the data shown by a summary of the literature and the indicators for each element. The summary is presented in tables to help readers easily identify the findings. This clear connection and reflection contribute to the soundness of the research. In the discussion part, the authors have made it clear how they arrived at the interpretations of the findings. It is shown by discussing the theoretical framework to aid the study's rigor. The implications of the findings were clear, and where appropriate, their applicability or transferability can be identified. Targeting different audiences, the authors explicitly state their hope that readers will find value in these suggestions, particularly in seeing relevance and application when moving through the process of deploying the framework in teaching practice. Transferability of qualitative study is available in the article. The authors invite instructors, instructional designers, teaching teams, program level, macro level, and researchers to collaborate in the future steps. This invitation is to see whether or not the study findings can be transferred to other situations. The authors invite other instructors and researchers to use the proposed framework across various populations and disciplines to validate the online engagement framework and comment on its robustness. In conclusion, overall, the article has met the criteria for evaluating qualitative articles written by Catala and Morley regarding credibility, setting, confirmability, data collection, patterns and theme formation, rigor, and transferability. However, since the study employed a grounded theory, some criteria are not available, such as ethical approval and practice, participants' inclusion and exclusion criteria, and recruitment sites from which the sample was drawn. Here are the references I used in this journal critical review. This part brings me to the end of the presentation. I appreciate your time and thank you.